All information given in this episode is for educational purposes and should not be tried prior to consulting a licensed physician and or certified state or accrediting bodies. We encourage all listeners to research, talk, and make all inquiries to all of the important professionals and governing bodies before acting on any information heard on the De La Fit podcast. Any action taken by any listener is done by and under their own omission and action, whether conscious to the results positive or not.
To the De La Fit podcasts, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast.
Salutations and proclamations. It is I, it is you, it is us, it is we. Together we make up the digital family that is the De La Fit podcast. I'm your host, Philly's #1 son, aka the Body Alchemist, Sun Moon Bay, bringing you another podcast excursion. Welcome everybody back to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health that is the De La Fit podcast. We are going to be discussing what has been and is continuing to be discussed over and over. That's right, the coronavirus. The effects that it has on us is immense. It is affecting our world. It is affecting everything that we know. Social distancing is a reality and a part of our world. Coming to you from Philadelphia, where currently at this time under a sit-in lockdown, which is basically we are only allowed to go out, get food, do essential things to our lives. We are allowed to go out, get exercise, but we are encouraged to keep 6 feet in distance from one another unless you are related or a significant other. And it is something to be adapted to. Many individuals are, in a sense, not focusing on this. The mindset that I see of the people right now is that of unbelief. And at the same time, one of the luxury of not being disciplined when it comes to paying attention to the government, the laws, and things of that nature, which many of us who have lived in the Western world, specifically the United States, have our own feelings when it comes to government as to why we don't necessarily listen and or trust. But when it comes to the COVID-19 coronavirus, I think that is something that we should take seriously. We should listen to our government officials and local government officials when it comes to what we need to do to protect ourselves, protect our families, our loved ones. This is something serious. It's affecting everything that we do. It's affecting our health. It's affecting our mental health. It's affecting our financial health, which is why we are going to be talking to Bill Kurzeja. Bill is the owner and founder of Professional Success South, a professional sales, training, and business consulting firm. He's going to be with us discussing possibilities and how we can be affected by the coronavirus financially, how we can create a plan of action that can help us going forward financially, how and what we should be concerned about when spending, and many more potent and hopefully helpful tips to guide us through this pandemic and help us come out on the other side. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. I'm not going to hold back and speak too much longer. I want us to get directly into the information. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? It's Philly's #1 son. Listen, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you how to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a stunning podcast in one place. So listen, if you want to be like me and have your own podcast, go to anchor.com. That's anchor.com.
You're now tuned in to the De La Fit podcast.
Welcome back to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health that is the De La Fit podcast. And my, oh my, what the headlines are saying. It has been 2 weeks. Much has changed. Many are living in quarantine environments. This is something that I don't think many United States citizens would have ever believed that they would be living under. Here at the De La Fit podcast, we originally moved our studio into Center City, Philadelphia, and now we are broadcasting out of the house. So much has changed. So much is going on over what I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about right now, the COVID-19, also known as coronavirus, the pandemic that is sweeping the entire world at this moment. Many of us are trying to understand what it is that we need to do, how we are to adapt to the change in lifestyle. Many of us are trying to understand what our finances are actually going to do as well. And we've brought a special guest, Mr. Bill Kurzeja. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He is the owner and founder of Professional Success South, a professional sales and training and business consulting firm. And he's going to answer some of the questions that we have and hopefully you all have out there, which might help us. So, Bill, how are you today?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much for having me on, especially in this time of information needed, right?
Yes, much so. So, Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself, your education, before we get into these questions.
So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, actually born right there in South Philadelphia, raised in the Northeast. Followed my educational path into Penn State. And from Penn State, I transitioned into the military, where I served for 8 years and learned a lot of discipline and attention to detail and how to apply that. From transitioning from the military into the civilian sector, I went into automotive retail. And for the next 20 years, I spent myself learning how customers interact, how salespeople interact, managing salespeople, worked all the way up into positions of running dealerships at the general manager level throughout our country. And a little over 5 years ago, I transitioned over to what I do now, and that's coaching, teaching, training, communication to sales and businesses and individuals of many different walks of life, everything from real estate agents to automotive to small business owners, large business owners, large teams and small teams, how effective communication can lead you to freedom. So not only, freedom of time, but freedom of finances, and giving you that ability to live the life that you want to live. So a little bit about me. So how about we talk about what's going on now, right?
Yes, let's talk about what's going on financially around the world. So those of us that are keeping in touch with the news, the government has declared the COVID-19 virus a national emergency, and each state municipality is enforcing social distancing and only allowing certain essential life-sustaining businesses to stay open. Bill, how is it going to affect our economy now, specifically those who are in lower income bracket, middle class families, etc.? What can they expect?
Obviously, going to cause a major slowdown in our economy, and especially for, like you said, the middle class. My wife and we have 4 children, everywhere from middle school all the way up to in college. And this is a very anxious and scary time for families that have, any situation where they have children, they have people depending on them, so on and so forth. What best advice that I can give to people at this point in time is to really communicate, right? Communicate with your significant other. Formulate a plan. Sit down, get a piece of paper and pen, write it down. Okay. The best way for us as people to understand and learn from what's happening is to write it out. Get the thoughts out of your head onto a piece of paper. It's going to cause you some peace of mind, some stability, because you can, you're comprehending what's happening and you're formulating a plan. So you have to get out everything that needs to happen, right? And I would start with where you are right now, what has been paid, what needs to be paid. Obviously, we need the essentials, which is going to be our food and supplies to sustain life through this. And then we worry about paying the credit cards and the other external expenses that we have created for ourselves over the past years and months. Mm-hmm. Now, with the middle class families and lower incomes that are dependent upon these restaurant jobs, and heck, even we've seen such a boom with Lyft and the rideshare programs that it's really come to a standstill at this point in time. And many people that were not only working one job, they were also bringing income into a second location, are seeing that suffer. The best way, like I said, is to really formulate your plan. Now, thankfully, there's a lot of people involved as far as organizations, so on and so forth, that are out there. And this is where the communication part really starts to come into play. You need to sit down, get all that information onto a piece of paper of where you're currently financially standing and where it's headed, right? So what you have currently right now, what's next, so on and so forth. And then you need to start making a list of organizations that are out there to help. There are so many organizations that are designed to help people in this time of need. And how do we do that? We still have access to our internet. We still have access to our smart devices. Just get on there and start plugging away and looking for these locations. And then picking up the phone and calling. You have to be persistent with the fact that you're not the only one in this situation. So what happens in a time of need? We find out how to survive, right? And how we survive is by asking for help. And there's so many people out there that let their pride get in that way sometimes, but this isn't that time that you need to let that happen. We're all in it together. That's the biggest message. There isn't one person in our country right now that is not being affected by this. So, correct. Whereas we would have, like you said, the upper, middle, and lower class and families and, the elderly, the 60 plus, they still exist, but when facing this virus and what it's doing to our economy, it does affect all of us. Right. So there are people that have earned more financially, yes, but that's shut off too for them. So I know we look at the fixed incomes and so on and so forth. I take my parents, for example. They live just north of Philadelphia in Bristol. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, speaking with my mother and father, and they live on a fixed income. My father was a roofer. My mother was an accountant. They didn't have tons of money. They put my sister and I through school, through college, so on and so forth. And they live on those checks that they get from assistance from the government and so on and so forth, right? Correct. But they've also created a strict budget to fit in that. So as long as the government can sustain, which all the messages are that it will, they are actually in a very good position as far as economically surviving this. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you did go to the individuals on fixed income. What type of financial hit will they have to endure? I know you're saying that as long as the government is standing firm and strong, that they should be fine. But what type of financial burden may they see coming their way in weeks, days, even months to come?
The biggest burden that they would face is if they weren't in a position budget-wise and living within those means prior to this, right? So if they were living off of credit cards and different things prior to this, they might be a little bit of a pinch figuring it out, right? Now, what this has also caused, though, is we're not spending. Obviously, we don't have the ability to go spend. The movie theaters are closed. Restaurants are closed for the most part. We're still going out and getting food. And I strongly suggest supporting your local, restaurants and small stores, your small grocery stores, so on and so forth. But we're not also going to sporting events, a Sixers game or, a Phillies game, so on and so forth in Philadelphia or any other location. We're not spending that extra money. So we've actually given ourselves a little bit of a break on what we would spend extracurricularly. Does that make sense?
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. No superficial spending on the outskirts of what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. So we're actually, as a people, we're going to learn how to live within our means by force, right?
Exactly.
So if we take and learn from this, it will definitely help us moving forward, right? But I know that doesn't relieve the anxiety currently. But like we were saying, that fixed income, the people that are living on that fixed income, our government is not showing any signs of having a struggle and those checks stopping. In fact, they're talking about how do we increase financial assistance to people. And like I said before, if it's a credit card, if you did have to use credit cards or you were using different forms of credit to sustain your life while on a fixed income, it comes down to communicating, right? Before you're past due, before your 30 days, whatever it is, pick up the phone and call the creditors. Let them know. They know they're being affected as well. They have families at home, so on and so forth, and they are being affected. Heck, they're probably working. When you pick up the phone and call, you're probably going to speak to someone sitting in their living room, because most places throughout our country are working at home at this point. And if they aren't, they will be in the near future. Remember that we're all in it together. If you don't communicate, if you don't pick up the phone and they don't know, they think you're fine and you can pay your bills, so they're going to expect you to pay your bill, right?
Exactly.
If you pick up the phone and tell them, look, I was driving Lyft, I was doing this, I was doing these other things, and I can no longer do them while this is happening, they're going to shift your payment. They're not going to charge you interest. Heck, mortgage companies are talking about people.
Hey everyone, we hope that you're enjoying the interview thus far. We'd just like to take some quick time out to remind everybody to like, follow, share, and subscribe. With every like, follow, share, and subscription, it helps the De La Fit podcast to grow. And the more we grow, the more information we can bring to you, the listener. So please, take some time out, like, follow, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Moving that payment to the back end of the loan without penalizing them. It sounds like, oh, okay, great, you're still going to, but that is such a relief, especially for people that are really tight budget-wise, and they're trying to figure out, how do I feed my family and keep my bills sustained? Because eventually, we're going to come out of this, and eventually, people don't want to be in a position where they dug a hole so deep they can't get out of.
What about Medicare? Medicare, and I know, dealing with having parents. My parents are 70 and 80. So Medicare is a huge issue for them as well as many seniors. Even before the pandemic. What about now? What will people in the age brackets of 60, 70, 80 be expecting? And what should they do during this time to make sure, like you're saying, that they're not in that hole?
Well, like I said, it really comes down to personal choices and living within the means and not putting yourself in the position to be pinched or stuck, right? And in the same aspect, you can pick up the phone, you can contact them. There's a lot of resources out there. All the that everything is still business as usual moving forward. So if you're on Medicare and you're using their resources, then expect to keep receiving that and keep moving forward, because there isn't a sign of that weakening, right? And in fact, I was reading an article today about the dollar. The strength of the dollar is increasing, and that sounds strange, right? Like
it does sound strange.
There's so many other countries that are still investing in the United States dollar and believing, because prior to this and in our history, we have proven that we are one of the strongest economies in the world. We are one of the strongest nations, if not the strongest nation in the world. And even though we want to, fight amongst ourselves like siblings, to the rest of the world, we're the big brother. Okay? We're the big sister. We're the one that people look to as far as stability. And they know that we are doing everything possible to come out of this on the other end in a successful position, right? Mm-hmm. As much as it's scary, and depending on what news source you turn on and what's being thrown at us, as far as, he said, she said type of stuff, that can cause a lot of confusion and a lot of fear, right? That's why I teach and focus so much on proper communication. If you have a question, pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody. Don't rely on different sources, external sources, for the proper information about Medicare. Spend the time, put your phone on speaker, sit on hold, or even just email them. They have chat services. There's many ways to communicate directly to the source. If we rely on third parties, it could be just social media. It could be your friend down the street that's posting something saying, oh, this isn't, they're cutting off this type of support or that type of support. That's not necessarily true. Go to the source, do a little bit of research. We have plenty of time on our hands right now.
That's true.
Really get to the heart of it and find out what information is accurate and what information is not accurate. Because I really feel that's what causes a lot of the anxiety here. And that's what causes us to make incorrect decisions, because we hear information and we react too quickly to that information before researching it.
That's very true. The president is rolling out the coronavirus economic relief package, Bill. What is it and how will it help us as citizens?
Well, it's a relief package like we have seen similar type of relief packages in the past. They call them stimulus packages. They were designed to, insert cash into the marketplace. We're in a little bit different situation here because, we receive funds from the government. And I haven't, again, this is, there's so much information out there. There isn't anything that has been locked in and is concrete truth, because they haven't even passed it yet. But the rumor is, $1,200 approximately to each individual. There's certain income brackets. They're going to, insert the money more to people that are $75,000 and less annually, which is an extremely large part of our population. And it's designed to help you sustain, give you the peace of mind. Because one of the things that we're seeing throughout this whole situation and how it's rolling out is, again, it's the communication factor. We've had our federal government, the president, and the whole staff that's working on this epidemic speak to us every day, right? We have had our governors. So in Pennsylvania and California, they've all been speaking to the state, their people, every day. The local government, the mayor, the city officials, they have also been holding daily press conferences. So we've seen something that if you go back to, and I wasn't around then, and I know you weren't around then more likely, was after World War I when we had the Great Depression. And this is the fear that people have, right? People have this fear that we're going to go into either a recession or a depression, right?
Correct.
Well, back then there was a combination of events that happened that caused that, and one of the major defining things in that whole scenario was the lack of communication, to the point that the government was purposely hiding the information, trying not to cause panic, okay? And because panic causes just this mass hysteria, and people start to react instead of thinking before reacting. And it's led to a lot of people suffering and ultimately dying because of scenarios and situations that they were put in. So how is it different now? We have, some people will talk and complain about social media and about the freedom of communication that we have right now, but it's a blessing as well, okay? We have this ability for me to be speaking to you right now, for you to go anywhere online, anywhere on the television, and get information, right? Whereas before, the government could stand up there and tell us there's only been 5 cases and no one would know the difference. Now we know. So what does it do? It forces our leadership to be as transparent as they possibly can. And I know that transparency is the hot topic, but it really makes a difference, right? Because, you know, I'm a husband and a father, and I want to make the best decision for my unit, my family, my household, right? That's the first choice that I have to do is protect myself and them. And I have to base that off of the current information that we have in the world. And now I'm in a position where I can get it, and then I can double check it. I can fact check it. I can go to many different sources and get their perspective and what they see happening and not happening. And that is powerful. Knowledge is powerful. And that's what we have right now. We can gain that knowledge.
Bill Kurzeja, everybody. Bill, thank you for coming to the De La Fit podcast. I appreciate you spending this time, this difficult time, with us and sharing the benefits of your knowledge. Where can people look for you, talk with you, and get more conversation with you if need be?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm everywhere on social media, so and fortunately enough, I can spell my last name for you. It's Bill, Kurzeja, and you plug that in, you're gonna find me. Or my website, it's professionalsuccesssal.com, and I react very quickly. I like to communicate, as you can tell. And thank you so much for having me on. I think it's so important that people just, get the knowledge, get the understanding. And if you can remember just one thing, no matter what you hear, just take a breath, let it settle in, and then make a decision. If we all learn to pause for a second, we're going to come out of this perfectly fine.
Bill, just a quick question. What is your opinion of the media in general when it comes to everything that's taking place?
Well, the media in itself, just the terminology, it's a business, right? It's not, we call it the media now. We don't call it our news source, right? So there's a difference involved, and that's the one major factor that people need to understand. Is media is driven by viewership, it's driven by dollars, and their whole purpose, and not against them at all. They all have jobs and families, and they have to. It's just like the baseball team, right? They have to supply entertainment in order to keep ratings and in order to keep viewership up, right? People engage. They have to create engagement, and that's what the media is doing. And now the opposite end is a news source, and that's where news is based on fact, right, and information. And that's the two major differences. Unfortunately, it takes money to be on television. It takes money to be, out there. So the line has become blurred, where media and news are kind of one and the same depending on where you're going. I stick primarily to local news stations because they give you a little bit more of first your localized information, but then they're driven more for information that's more accurate. That makes sense. If it's
makes a lot of sense.
If it's a location that you have to have a lot of viewership and you have a lot of people tuning in, and it becomes opinionated, and that's where this is one person's opinion based upon their feelings and not based upon the actual facts, and that's the difference.
Bill Kurzeja, everyone. Bill, thank you so much. I wish you and your family the best during this time. Please stay safe, and we hope to have you back again.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, you, with the earbuds in their ear. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcasts. I like to upload my episodes directly to the app and then promote. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it. Go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Thank you, Bill, for coming on to the show and giving us the benefit of your education and helping us to, in a sense, kind of create a map or a financial plan of some sort going forward with this pandemic and this great world issue that we are all affected by, touched by. It is so much going on. It is so much occurring, and it is in real time. So it's something to be assessed, and we're getting hit with it continuously 24/7 around the clock. So many things are changing. We're hearing one thing, we're hearing another, but hopefully some of this information will be of some comfort for you, to you, your family, your loved ones. Right now, the De La Fit podcast, we are committed to being a resource for you, the listeners, to help you through this time of need, trying to get you the best information, the best individuals to come on the show that can help you and perhaps answer your questions. We always encourage everybody to please contact us. We have the email, which is delafit13@gmail.com. You can also contact us by calling 267-908-5689. That's our Google line if you want to reach out, ask a question. Also, you can contact Bill Kurzeja at the links that he said. We will have this placed on the website for everyone to use in order to contact, reach out, ask questions of him if need be. In this time, I would like to say that this is the time that we all need to think with the most level head possible. The media is such a strong force, no matter what, even despite the pandemic, which itself is an intimidating factor. This is a time for us to think rationally, not irrationally. This is a time for us to make sure that everything that we do is calculated and thought about. We can't make rash decisions in these type of times, and we have the benefit of history to guide us through. Every point of history where we have met these type of challenges, there has been irrational thinking, and we can go back and look on that and see where it takes us. This is the time to be rational, to be fully thoughtful, to practice mindfulness. If you're a spiritual person, to practice spirituality. if you are a religious person, to get into your religious teachings. And when I say this, I mean to go into it with a totally positive, not a negative, not a irrational, not a zealot mentality, but with a positive human thought, heart, mind, action. We are all in this together, and we all need each other no matter what. We don't all have to like each other, but we all need each other still. We are one big family. As I've always said in these podcasts, we make up the human family. We are the village. Each one teach one. It takes a village to raise a child, and all of us are in this village. We are all the children of the earth, which makes us all brothers and sisters in one way or another. So, with all of you out there, I wish you nothing but peace, healthy thoughts, a heart full of love, and physical and mental health as well. Please be safe out there, and may you all be loved and blessed.
You've been listening to the Delafit podcast. Ta-ta for now.